And it's showtime. Hello, everybody. It is indeed your boy back again with the stream because there may or may not be a video this week. So, just in case, I thought I'd bring our kid, friend of the channel. Wait, who are you? Paleo Angloism? Well, as
Yeah.
you can probably tell by the title of the stream, it's the artist formerly known as British Knight. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me, as always.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, first off, how you doing?
I'm fine. I've mainly been going through the process of rebranding, trying to get new kinds of content out, starting up the second channel. I've just been trying. I've just decided to. I finally decided on a direction for my content, and so I've been trying to lean into that as heavily as possible while keeping within the constraints of my IRL schedule.
Yeah, so explain the rebranding. So why Paleo Angloism? What even is that?
Well, Paleo Angloism basically means Anglo, like Anglo-focused, basically English-focused, Paleo libertarianism. Now, for those of you who don't know what Paleo libertarianism is, I'm sure Mitch does, but it's basically it's a libertarianism that is socially and culturally conservative. And it's a socially and culturally conservative form of libertarianism that believes that, shall we say, cultural egalitarianism, multiculturalism, and progressivism are incompatible with a libertarian social order, and that in order to achieve a libertarian social order, those things need to be eliminated from the cultural zeitgeist. And so basically I am advocating for a libertarianism, pretty much a libertarianism of the right, shall we say, and kind of no nonsense, no tolerance approach to progressivism in all its forms, be it progressive neoliberalism or progressive socialism, and generally a zero tolerance towards liberal Democrats and communists.
Nick Clegg, beware.
Yeah.
So basically, Hoppianism.
Yeah, in a sense, yes, but it's not just inspired by Hopper and Rothbard. It's also inspired by paleo conservatives like Thomas Fleming and Pat Buchanan.
Yeah. Do you still have, because it's Angloism? Is it also you have a lot of the English tradition in your beliefs? Burke, Hume, people like that.
Yeah, in my particular brand, yes. That's obviously because I myself am English.
Although Hume was Scottish, but again, like there's a lot of overlap between English and Scottish liberalism anyway. I mean, it's practically the same thing.
Exactly, it's my own particular brand of. It's Anglo-centric for sure. Like I take and I take some elements from people like Enoch Powell, and even on the spicier side, I take some minor elements, especially generally only in like power analysis and like political persuasion from like Bowden.
Bowden.
Clear them out. Yeah.
I don't remember that guy.
Yeah. He was a, and this is why I say it's spicy. He was a BNP spokesperson.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Jonathan Bowden. He was
basically a socialist.
Well, yeah, he was a brilliant speaker, and he basically his contributions to the right have mainly been in like power analysis and in like cultural elitism and stuff like that.
Although I hesitate to call his party right wing.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah, I guess you're right. For example, like a BNP, both the BNP and UKIP, to be honest, they both a large part of their voter base was former Labour voters. So,
well, it's the Peter Hitchens type of conservatism, isn't it? "Quote unquote." They're pretty much left wing on they're left wing on everything else, but they're conservative-ish.
That's what I mean. They're social and cultural conservatives, but they're the economic social democrats.
And that does kind of influence their social beliefs as well, the economics, whether they know it or not, it does. And that's why I
Yeah,
think they too deserve a special helicopter ride. But it's a comfortable ride, but the end result is still the same.
indeed.
I'm sorry, nothing personal, but you're too much of a risk. But at least we got you a cushion. So that's what you've been for quite a while now, really, though. At least about a year or two.
I would say not necessarily a year.
Hmm.
Would I say a year? Not quite a year, but
Okay.
I'd say I've probably been
Hmm.
I've probably been some level of like libertarian for about 2 years. But I'd say my cross into anarcho-capitalism and paleo-libertarianism has probably been over maybe the last, yeah, I'd say, yeah, about a year.
Hmm.
I'll give you that. If it was the beginning of the year, I'd say not quite, but since we're
Yeah.
about 3 months in, yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. About a year, but that's what I'm saying. I'm fully confident in my politics now, and my I'll I'll just
Get
leave
some
that.
O's in the chat, guys.
Give over, Jim. You friggin' Chicago libertarian.
Hey, now he's based. Because Dan Duchamp is also. There's actually a surprising amount of Chicago libertarians.
Indeed, there are.
I mean, I,
As
I actually do prefer them.
as Jim could probably tell, I'm very much an Austrian libertarian.
Hmm.
But
Again,
yeah,
we can all coexist peacefully because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. And the
indeed.
Fed. so,
Um,
so like, what was the tipping point for you to go into paleo libertarianism as opposed to, say, something else that was still pretty, to the right, but not like paleo conservatives?
I think it was more to do with the idea that I was not. I think it really was the pandemic, and I think the pandemic
Hmm.
really was a black pill for many people, or
Hmm.
not
For
necessarily a
me, it
black
was a red
pill.
pill.
It was very much it was an awakening moment, regardless,
Hmm.
and it was very much this idea that, oh, we're not actually. How should I put it? Uh, yeah, the basically any vestiges of any kind of faith in the system and the faith
Hmm.
in, I guess you could say, liberal democracy and by extension progressivism, kind of just social progressivism, kind of just died. Well, that's not quite correct, because I would be lying if I said I wasn't like socially, not necessarily progressive, but socially liberal in one or two positions.
Hmm.
I'm
I
not
can think of
so,
a few.
yeah, but more often
Hmm.
than not, I have went full into social conservatism, because
Yeah.
it basically just brought it is brought complete, just because um my faith in like liberal democratic institutions and in the kind of progressive direction that they've been taking for the past 100 years or so has just been thoroughly smashed by everything up to that I've experienced politically up until this point. It's really made me think that there is something irredeemably corrupt about our current system, both
Hmm.
morally and politically. And I do think we need something that will strip the state of its power while
Hmm.
simultaneously maintaining moral and ethical virtue and order.
Basically, yeah, that's something we're gonna have to figure out whether we're paleo libertarians or not. Really, let's be honest. Everyone's got
Yes.
to kind of come up with that because it didn't black pill me the pandemic at all. It red pilled me because I'm not a natural black pillar. I don't I, I don't see events like that as something that means I should give up all hope and that this means that things will never change because things do change. We got locked in our homes for 2 years, well, for about a year and a half, on and off. So things do change, just not always for the better. And it showed me more and more that this is why we actually need to get into positions to actually stop this from happening. Whether that be using, quasi right wing parties, incentivizing them to go against their globo homo inklings. Uh, what law? Not law seatism. What's the actual phrase that Freedom Alternative uses? Um, it's the type of activism where you use law, where you go into the law and you use the law against the state in order to get what you want. I forgot what they call it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not familiar
yeah,
with the name myself, but I
Yeah.
understand what
So
you're saying.
using, suing the government for what they did with regards to mandates and things like that, and because it's happened in Europe actually, a lot of the mandates were found throughout all these countries unconstitutional. Believe it or not, I think even Austria at one point, their Supreme Court or their version of it said, yeah, this actually isn't legal. At least some countries did. So that's what we need to start doing. It's already happening in America, at the very local level, but that's where it needs to begin in order for it to grow. It's a long march for the institutions, but it starts off by suing people and getting into school councils as opposed to joining university, becoming a professor, and then teaching the next generation. We're not at that level yet. But if you can, but the whole reason why Youngkin got elected in Virginia recently is because Republicans went through the very local level, attaining power in all these school boards, and also the fact that they were locked down as well, so the parents were exposed to what their kids are basically being taught. And basically, they were like, "Well, look, we now have the power to affect change and stop this from happening." And lo and behold, look who came in. That's what you can do by just affecting the local level. And then also, it red pilled me against the state. Finally.
Yeah, I basically just got to the point where I basically just decided that we are not going to find any kind of real social progressivism being advocated sincerely by the state in any capacity, nor are we going to see any kind of action within the state apparatus that's going to reduce state power. And it does seem to be we're at a point where the people who we've elected into these institutions, or rather people who have been put in front of us to be elected into those institutions by the powers that be, such as the WEF and their Young Leaders Program, which even Putin was a part of, by the way, where we're at the point now where it's just it's all a theatre, basically,
Yep.
and it's all a theatre, and it's all in the goal of this kind of progressive neoliberal utopia that
Yeah, Putin's saying he's denazifying Ukraine.
yeah,
I thought that
like
was a very progressive argument for war.
it, that's what I mean. It's like it's this progressive neoliberal utopia that basically the elites of society want, but they don't want it because they genuinely believe it'll make a better world. They know it will make it. They know it will make the world worse, but it will make the world worse for everyone except them.
Yeah. Are you saying it's a circus?
I am saying it's not just it's not just a circus. It's a whole clown world, Mitch.
Hulk.
Hong Kong, etc., etc.
You know what? I wish I had the sound effect for the circus or for a honk. Because I know that Jim's probably messing with his own at the moment. That's not a euphemism.
It's gotten to the point now where I'm actively looking for things to just take my mind off shit when I'm not doing YouTube stuff or uni stuff, because it's become
Animals for me.
it's become that distressing. I just don't want. I don't. There are points where I just have to switch off and not think about it. Otherwise, it would just drive me insane. Like
Honestly, just retweeting animal pics will do you a world of good. Trust me, it really does. And watching animal YouTube channels. So I will shill one YouTube channel for everyone to watch, which is completely apolitical, although he does occasionally make the odd base joke, but it's really subtle. It's called the Urban Rescue Ranch. Watch it, especially the one with how to survive a rear attack. It's really good.
my favorite.
Go on.
I was just saying, my favorite type of content in this regard is just random stuff in nature, like primitive building projects,
Oh yeah.
or like primitive building projects, or there was one that I posted um, in the pub. You know what I'm talking about. The
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, where it was where a guy did a hike across all of Great Britain, from the very
Mm.
tip of Scotland to the very tip of mainland Scotland, all
Mm.
the way down to the bottom tip of mainland England.
Oh, Land's End. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good, and I think he said it took him like 2 months to do.
Mm.
It was just it's that's the sort of stuff I watch just to switch off. That
Mm.
or video essays about TV shows that I've never watched,
Yeah.
because if I don't watch innocuous stuff like that, I start thinking about the state of the world and I start to get upset
Mm.
or
I
angry
literally
or
don't
both.
blame you. I really don't.
And this is
So like, yeah, go on.
but this is ultimately to bring it back around to the original point. This
Mm.
is why I do the rebrand, because I know what I must do now. God has spoken to me.
So like, what I've been watching as well is a lot of shit. What was I watching? So not just the animal stuff, but I'm also watching like a lot of reviews and LawTube. I've been watching a hell of a lot of LawTubes. You know, Nick Ricator, since he's gotten back into actually talking about the law. Because for a while I used to watch him for that, but then he got into blood sports and like a lot of that stuff and drama because he was hanging out a lot with Jim and Ralph. Although he's no longer affiliated with Ralph because Ralph has burned all his bridges.
I've
And since
noticed
he's
that he's also become a big
mm,
part of Comic Skate YouTube. Nick
has he?
Rigator, yeah,
See,
he's appeared on stuff like Friday Night Tights and stuff like that.
oh, that's good. I did hear
Yeah.
he may have streamed with them at some point. Yeah,
Oh yeah, he's come really ingrained in the Comic Skate community now. Like they're
that's
all
pretty
buddy
damn
buddy
good.
with him. See,
That's
it's
good.
good.
So go on.
That's also stuff that I like to watch, because I like to remember there was a time where I thought that stuff actually mattered.
Hmm. It was
Whereas,
the
like,
Rittenhouse stuff that got me back into him.
I like watching people
Mm,
fight these less important battles, because I just like
mm,
to think, because I like to know that even though I've stopped caring about those battles, there are still people, fighting that less that what I consider to be a less important cultural base.
mm.
Because I feel like um, if people stopped fighting that base, like I feel like it would just be a subtle victory for the left, or that most people in the culture war who have kind of moved past that kind of um, Gamergate, Comicsgate stuff
Mm.
would just completely miss.
Yeah, I'm still kind of in. Oh, hi, Portrait Seal. So I still want to get involved in that kind of stuff because I recognise that all that media is our modern myths. That's our culture. That's our cultural product, right? And it does. I don't think it has a direct influence on people. So like I don't think video games cause violence, but they can definitely be conduits for
But
ideology. I mean,
I do,
but you get to decide whether or not you choose to agree with it or not.
yeah,
But
I do
again,
take.
it's an element of control that I don't think they. It's for me. It's like they shouldn't be allowed to control it. That's
Well,
why
I
they should be
do take.
gatekeeped out.
Well, this is why I take issue with some people on the right, who I won't name names with.
Mm-hmm.
They're very good friends of ours, in fact,
Mm-hmm.
who stick their nose up at
Mm-hmm.
this kind of media, because they think because they think because they either think it's cringe or they think it's degenerate, like that. I'm just like, well, fine, you can have that opinion, but that isn't going to change the fact that people of our
Mm-hmm.
generation are going to keep consuming it.
Yeah.
So it either you participate and you get your opinion heard in the grand scheme of that in the grand scheme of the cultural zeitgeist, or you whinge and moan while being completely ignored, and the progressives continue to take control of modern media that's being fed to kids and teenagers.
TikTok, for example.
Yeah, it's like a good friend of the channel, single player Carl. He's
Yeah,
one of the few people who I actually know who actually has an active TikTok account, who's actually using it for that kind of stuff, for culture critique and for
it's just
calling
that
people out.
I would use it if it wasn't Chinese spyware.
Well, I think some people have just kind of accepted that, have just kind of accepted that if it's not China, it's someone else. So I don't really care if someone's spying on me at this point. Just,
Maybe the VPN, I don't know.
I think just some people have just accepted the
But I
fact.
do think it does have a really bad influence on kids. It does. I never thought YouTube did because it's so vast and that you can be in your own little echo chambers. So it only really affects individuals. Like the beauty community are toxic as fuck, but they don't influence the whole of society or large sections. It's just these particular girls or gay boys like to watch beauty YouTube and the tea that comes with it, but they're not influencing the whole of society, are they? It's just individuals. But with TikTok, like it's the only social media site that I know of where people are wearing its merch. You don't see
Yeah,
people wearing YouTube. You don't see people wearing Twitter. You don't see people even wear Instagram merch. But you see, I've seen quite older people wear TikTok. I'm pretty sure, but mostly it's kids,
yeah.
and those people
Um,
do have a lot of influence, and they're
Richard or
influencing large sections of society, and it's kind of worrying. And it's different in the West than it is in China as well, which should tell you all you need to know.
Richard Oren in chat. Um, AA does think that anime is degenerate, but that wasn't who I was talking about.
Well, he doesn't even watch it, so how would he know?
And I'm not gonna name
See,
names
I
because
thought I recognised that Frank Gutierrez. You deleted him in your stream a few days ago.
yeah, saying I'm not gonna name names because I'm not about that life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a debate bro.
Debate. I actually had a debate me bro recently, but he couldn't even accurately say what I said in my video to me back. So I just was like, well, come back to me when you can actually accurately say what I said in that video. Which one was it now? I need to go have a look. Also, who's that Frank Gutierrez? Because I saw him on one of your streams and you deleted him there. Is it like a bot?
It's a bot, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking that. I was like, should I delete it or not? Because
It's,
got to get the bots out.
yeah,
Oh yeah, it was a
basically,
purge the old. It was either you want so you want the revolution, man. And he said, wait, you against revolution? Like, well, no, I'm not against it in principle. I just these right wingers like we all know who they are. Who say that they want a revolution like Lenin and they want it now. How are they going to do it? And they don't. A lot of them don't seem to actually understand how he did his revolution. Like, if he hadn't been put on that train by Germany, he would have still been stuck in Germany in exile, doing nothing, and we'd have a Menshevik government instead, which rather than the counter-revolution, which was Lenin. He was not the revolution, which they
saying
seem to forget. Who's going to send them on the train to Washington DC or London? No one. They're not in that position.
or at worst, enemies of the British state.
Exactly. I mean, Putin, for example, and the Duginists, but they have a lot of admirers on our side for some reason, which baffles me. Like
I am
Duginists don't even have a proper ideology. Right? I mean, it's essentially national Bolshevism, but they will adapt their ideology to whoever they need to infiltrate and subvert. So they will come across as more liberal to liberals, or more progressive to progressives, and more conservative to conservatives, in order to infiltrate. That's what they do, and that's what Putin has taken from them. So, like in Russia, he's the big great leader, isn't he? He's going to make him great again. Then but then to the West, it depends on what he wants. So he'll pretend to be the voice for the conservatives, but then when he invades Ukraine, he's trying to play on the left, the progressive mantra of denazification and stuff like that. Do you see what I mean? And
Yeah,
yet they don't see that. For some reason, these big-brained people who read all these books can't see that.
I'm very much of the opinion that
Mm,
Putin in my ideal Britain is neither friend nor foe. He's distinctly neutral.
mm,
Whereas he's not someone I would trust, but he's also someone who I'd be willing to trade with.
mm.
Whereas with say he's just not. He's not freaking Winnie the Pooh. Is all I'm saying. If
He
Putin
wishes
cares,
he was.
if Putin cares about Putin. At the end of the
Mm.
day, I wouldn't even say he cares about Russia. Putin cares about Putin.
See, he wishes he was Xi Jinping, but he doesn't have the resources, and I don't think he's as smart and intelligent as people think he is. Like, yeah, he's not stupid. I'm not saying he's stupid, but he isn't the grand Thanos-brained 4D chess player that a lot of people on the right wish he was. He really isn't. He only
I,
is compared to who we have.
Here's the thing: Russia is comparatively to the rest of the world an incredibly easy country to control. And the reason why it's easy to control is very simple. It's because it went through 200 years
Hmm.
methods of continuously oppressing regular
Hmm.
people.
Yep.
And yeah, they had the Bolshevik Revolution, all that sort of stuff. But as you said, it was astroturfed by the Germans and by Lenin himself.
Hmm.
And it was a how should I put it? Basically, it it's about six generations deep into like
Hmm.
generational alcoholism. Like
It's a meme country.
it's a huge problem in Russia.
Hmm.
Like alcoholism, domestic and subsequent problems from that, like
Hmm.
domestic violence and sexual assault and stuff like that. And it's a country. It's a country that has been. It's a country that is still mired in this sort of Soviet take what you can get
Hmm.
mentality, which has slowed its recovery post Soviet Union, where like everything is still mired in a layer of corruption, and people will take money out of the system to spend on themselves and their families
Hmm.
just because they can, really, because like I say, it's everyone. It's just a mentality of everyone out for themselves
Hmm.
rather than like actually allowing the system to repair itself.
Yeah, and it's a meme country for a reason. It's a shit old meme country where people make like improvised cannons just for the hell of it. Like it's funny, but that's why they are where they are because of all the
So
Suka Bliat compilations.
it's
Oh, it's the ice cream guy. Sorry.
it's fine. The freaking
Oh,
infamous
not
ice.
another one. Hang on. Let me get the bot. You continue.
Oh, I've already got him.
Oh, damn you quick.
But yeah, it's just this. The thing about Russia is just it is basically a country that was never been allowed to fully develop. Like
No.
the mentality is oh, how should I put it? Like, for example, say a worker is working in like a toll booth or something,
Hmm.
like some sort of guard post or whatever. That guard post gets a new yellow lamp just for the desk. The first thing that worker will do is steal the lamp to take it home to use for himself, and then basically not. So basically, he gets the lamp, but then it's basically that mentality nationwide,
Hmm.
where everyone's just kind of out for themselves, and that leads to no ability to like unify and like not necessarily collectivize, but like just to
Hmm.
um basically create basically not enough cohesion for to form a nation around.
But they're very good at propaganda, making it out like they're a totally functional society with a great leader who knows exactly what he's doing.
Well, the country's been held together by by a post-Soviet emergent middle class. You'll
Hmm,
notice a lot of um, a very rich middle class, comparatively rich middle class Russian people who have kind of popped up in all the sections of YouTube over the past 5 years.
like no
There's
fuckers,
like
if you
sort of
remember him.
yeah, like Russians over
Hmm,
the past like
hmm,
half a decade. They've just kind of just the percentage of high subscriber count Russian
hmm,
YouTube channels have just kind of exploded,
hmm,
and this is because of an emergent middle class in Russia. But the thing is about the emergent middle class is that they're the only thing holding the country together,
hmm. Yeah,
and, it,
and what's
and there's
what's
really
funny
not
is,
that
go on.
many of them.
Yeah, they've been stunted for the past 150 years for various reasons, whether it's the czars or bad economic policy or the communists. They've never had a chance to really shine and bring that country up to where it should be. Like, it was on its way to being that under Tsar Nicholas during peacetime. Regardless of what he wanted, I think it was heading in the right direction. Thanks in part to France and Britain, pumping credit and money and supplies and loads of different kinds of capital you can possibly imagine. They were always there anyway. Like, we get the word intelligentsia from the Russians. They always had this potential for this middle class because look at the literature that they came out with in the 1800s. Even now, even to this day, like in the 60s and 70s, like the Soviets were really good at, well, no, from the 20s to like the mid 20s to the late 20th century, they were excellent at filmmaking, weren't they? Like they've had this potential for years, but because of the ruling class and other things, they've never gotten off the ground. And it's a real shame.
Well, do you know how the generational alcoholism came about in Russia? Well, basically,
Mm-hmm.
basically what happened was is that the czars just found that the best way to keep the people in line would be to keep them drunk, and
Mm,
basically what they did was they subsidized the creation of a lot of really cheap vodka, which is
mm,
where like sort of Russians love vodka meme comes from,
mm,
and they gave it to the Russians really cheaply.
mm,
And one of Lenin's promises from the revolution was that he was going to abolish alcohol in Russia and
mm,
get Russians clean. And actually, and to be fair to Lenin, I
mm,
know he did a lot of terrible things, but one of the few things he did right is that he did actually abolish the he did actually abolish the shut down the vodka factories and abolish alcohol. But then when Stalin took over,
mm,
he opened them back up again, and it became he opened them back up again, and not only that, during rationing, vodka was part of a Russian person's ration.
mm.
It became that like people were that reliant on it that it had to be rationed out to them with the same importance as like meat and bread and milk and
Mm.
butter.
It's like was part of the reason why Stalin opening up was not just because he wanted to control the populace, but was there a massive black market as well? Because that happened in America when they had prohibition at the same time.
I
That must have
imagine,
been a reason.
well, I imagine there would be because, like I said, it's basically like 6 generations steep worth of
Mm,
alcohol, with
mm.
generational alcoholism. Like
And people go on.
people became near enough reliant on the stuff.
I mean, people think that our drinking culture is bad. It never got that bad over here
No,
as it did over there. So, speaking of Russia, because this is actually related to this, Poland and Hungary have been punished by the EU with economic sanctions, whilst they're also dealing with a massive refugee crisis. But they've been dealing with a Ukrainian refugee crisis since 2014, but nobody cared until recently. You know, such is the way life is. So, but the EU sanctions have nothing to do with Russia, as far as I know. From what I briefly glanced at a article, and it stated that this is to do with them breaking rules that go against a liberal democracy, even though the EU is not a democracy or liberal.
Yeah,
It's USSR. So they're being punished for this, and then this prompted Jack Posobiec to tweet. Let me actually, I could bring it up maybe. Let me just do this now. If he hasn't deleted it yet, he decided that because the EU voted this, it wasn't the Belgians or the French or the Germans or the Dutch or the Romanians or whoever is in the EU still that are to blame. No, it's the Anglos that are to blame. Am I at fault? No, it's the kids that are wrong, basically. Let me see if I can find the tweet for you guys so you can all bask in its stupidity. All right, hang on a sec. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Freaking.
Oh, yeah, can you send me the tweet? Beep, beep. I'm trying to find it. I'm very bad at finding tweets.
Hold on. It's in private chat.
Cheers. This is literally one of the dumbest tweets I've ever seen. I'm not going to lie. I'm not even... This isn't hyperbole. This is one of the dumbest. Not the dumbest, but one of the dumbest. And you guys get to see it. I might make a video on this. Only short. But it really is worth punching right on this because this guy is a moron. And he always has been. And let me just share my screen. Hang on a sec. So it's here somewhere. There you are. That one. Can you see that? There we are. Yeah. So, Poland betrayed by the Anglos yet again because the European Parliament passed a resolution demanding the European Commission impose an immediate economic sanction on Poland and Hungary. 478 MEPs voted for, 155 against. Note the number. There's a few missing, isn't there? Because we're not in the EU anymore. And yet Jack Posobiec has forgotten in his Anglophobia that England, or rather Britain, is no longer in the EU and therefore has no say on whether or not Poland and Hungary get sanctioned. But apparently, we've betrayed them before. That is a reference to World War II, for those of you who don't know, because apparently, despite the fact that we declared war on Germany because we had to fight for Poland, we promised them, that was a betrayal because we were inept and unprepared when we did so. That is not betrayal. That is incompetence. A big difference. But I don't get why he said this. Is he really that stupid? But then again, this is the same guy, guys, that protested a play because it had Trump as Julius Caesar. It was like, do you remember that?
Yeah. I would also like to point out that I'm pretty sure, like, there are some people who hypothesize he may be mixing up Anglos with Saxons, because obviously there's like, unlike the Angles who all moved over to England, the Saxons some Saxons did actually stay behind, and the Saxons of Saxony, who are like distant cousins of the English Saxons.
But the Germans to us, let's be honest, guys. So he means Germany.
Saying he could be mean if he's saying some people have hypothesized that in saying Anglos he means Germans, but
that's not what he means. He can't be that stupid, surely.
He's saying, that's what I'm saying. If that was to be correct, he would have to be really fucking thick.
I don't buy that. I really do think he thinks the English are still in the EU, still haven't, or at least we still have some kind of influence on them, even though we're not in it anymore. We have no say in what happens in that godforsaken place. But this all comes from this Anglophobia that is not just in the American, right? It is in the European one too. And I don't understand, out of all the countries he could have criticised, it was this one. And the amount of idiots who also believed him that we betrayed Poland, which we never have done. I mean, I actually met a Polish World War II veteran called Joe. And I think he's still alive. At least he was a few years ago. So I'd like Jack, if hypothetically, if they were to meet and tell him that he feels Poland was betrayed because the guy fought for us and Poland and then settled here, in the Polish Brigade.
Yeah.
So would they say they felt betrayed? No. And which country was it that was demanding, or rather, leader was demanding that we go and fight the Russians after World War Two? Churchill. Roosevelt didn't want to. Truman didn't want to. We did. Again, why is it that they're so Anglophobic? I think you said something before when we went live. Do you want to say that to the people in the chat? I'll stop sharing now because everyone's seen it. You're right there.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, I've in regards to that tweet, I just feel that it was it just does really go to show that the American right, basically the Americans have been at the center of an empire for far too long, and they view their client states with utter contempt. They don't view them as allies. They don't view them as friends. They view them as servants, basically. And here's the thing: it's not as if our leaders haven't given them that, haven't done everything in their power to give them that image. Because every time, pretty much since the end of World War Two, every time an American leader has said jump, a British leader has said how high.
Yep.
It's not as I can see where they would get their idea, but I do think it is time for a British leader to say, for them to say jump and a British leader to say fuck off.
Yeah. I mean, I made that video called American Skepticism for a reason, because there has been a growing trend, not just on the right, but on the left as well, in Britain, since I'd say the Iraq War, the second one, there has been a growing skepticism and wariness of Americans, not just politically, but culturally too. I think people are getting fed up with the Americanization of our accents and way of life and language. I mean, we don't mind everything, so like the odd Mackey's is fine, the odd KFC. But when people are starting saying "mom" as opposed to "mum," and little simple things like that, and using American slang terms unironically, and then also at the same time that they're influencing our society in other horrible, more nefarious ways, like all this what boomers call the woke ideology, the woke agenda, is transplanted from America to our country. They're trying to create the American South of the 1950s in our urban areas. That's always been the goal for the British left, because we've never had that, did we?
Oh no,
So there's that, and then also global policy as well, sending our men to war because they, again, as you said, the American leaders say jump, and we say how high.
Basically, what they're trying to do is trying to basically they're trying what America have done they have exported like Frankfurt School social progressivism Europe and the rest of the world to varying degrees. And now and here's the thing, and when I say America, I'm not talking about the American people. I know lots of Americans who I thoroughly enjoy hanging around and thoroughly enjoy being friends with, but the American state, it has exported like Frankfurt School social progressivism to the rest of the world, and now the left wings of varying countries are trying to recreate American social ills in their respective countries artificially. And this is causing tension because of political correctness. You can't basically call them out for the bullshit without kind of negative social recourse upon your person. Like you can't like it's very difficult to say like the oppression of black Brits was not nearly as bad as the oppression of black Americans. Like I can't, like, if I say that, then I'll get fucking destroyed. Sold.
It's like the only country where that's where that's different, where that is the opposite, is France. Yeah, their left is divided, although it's not like 50-50. It's more like 90-10 against the American style of identity politics. yeah, even the French left are against it, and the French right are obviously unanimous against it, and that's why you've been seeing a lot of the stuff that's been going on. You know, like thinking Macron going on about. Did you hear
Yeah,
about this about the universities and this Americanization and things like that? Although he did at one point, I think some of them at one point tried to blame us, but it was not the Brits that sent it to them; it was the Americans. But that's what they've been leading the cause against this in universities, and it's a unilateral bipartisan issue because it goes against the French culture. Like France is revolting, but they're not wrong when it comes to this, as Danger,
that's what I'm saying. It's
because they're kind of like us. Like, what is a like? We know what obviously we know what an English person is and what a Scottish person is, but a British person could be almost anything, really, if you think about it. Apart from the culture, which is you have to be culturally British, but ethnically, you could be anything, couldn't you? Really, in theory, right?
well, that's what I mean. We're
To be
basically
British, yeah.
we're seeing the return.
Mm.
It's this image of it's where the image of
Mm.
base Macron from last year came from.
Yeah, he wasn't based, but he was right about that.
Yeah,
And the things with the French, it's like it's a language-based culture. Really, it's not really an ethnic thing. It's quite old school in that regard. It's very medieval.
yeah. It's
Mm.
well, Napoleon was
Mm.
like from an ethnic sense. Even
Mm.
Napoleon wasn't actually French. He wasn't a Frank.
Italian, yeah.
Yeah, like ethnically speaking, he was Italian. So
Mm.
he's very much it is very much more of a language based culture for them. But but overall, it does seem to be that they are revolting. They are the one country at the moment that is most unanimously voting against
Mm.
Americanism, and I
Americanism, I like that.
think and I do think Britain could learn a thing or
Mm.
two.
It's
Purely,
growing. It's getting there. It's just not at France levels yet. But this is also a bipartisan issue for us as well. I do think it's just that the left and the right are America skeptical for different reasons, and
I
some
think,
same and some similar reasons. But primarily, it comes from a different place. So like the left, it's because of the wars. You know, the globalism and stuff like that. Although some of them are also globalistic, but whatever. But with us, it is the war as well, but it's also other things like culture and language and things like that, which some of the left do share as well. But they're the older ones, really. If you know what I mean. Like your Piers Morgan types, not Morgan, Piers Corbyn types, if you will.
yeah, it really did. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
It's. I just think that there isn't much of a there isn't much of an opposition to America here in the UK, just because I think that people identify with America too much, like because
I don't see that.
because superficially there's superficial aspects of America, even within their state, which is basically a carbon copy of us.
See, I don't think British people view America like that. Americans view us like that for sure. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them do. But I don't think Brits view Americans as carbon copy Brits. I think most British people I've talked to, and this is not just here, but in real life, like they always agree with me unanimously when I say, they always go on about how they're Irish American, African American, whatever, but to us they're just a bunch of Yanks. Everyone agrees with that, and it's not because they're carbon copy of us. It's like no, they're Americans and they're annoying. you know.
Well, it's
Hmm.
plastic paddies, aren't they?
Yeah,
Freaking
and I think Brits see differences more than Americans do. It's always Americans that are trying to find similarities, whereas your normal Brit will find more differences. It's people like your Douglas Murray types that try to find similarities between us and the Americans because they're neocons and they have a vested interest in doing so. But I do see what's happening in France growing here, but it's going to take a long while before it reaches fever pitch. But when it does, I think you'll see us become a bit more isolated from them than we already are. I mean, ap- apart from since Blair, I don't think many of our prime ministers have been that ass kissy with them. I think they're becoming less so. I mean, they're still pushing the whole special relationship thing, but when Boris Johnson is saying that he dislikes that term openly, or at
Yeah,
least it's been said that he dislikes it, things are changing. Even Brown was. I remember like it's not something that people would pick up on necessarily, but I remember when I was a kid, I was with my mum and my dad watching the news, and it was his first visit with George Bush in like what would it have been the mid 2000s. So he got into a golf cart with George W. Bush, Gordon Brown, and then George Bush is like, "Yeehaw, yeah, I'm in a golf cart, man. Come on, Gordon." And Gordon Brown looks dead uncomfortable, whereas Blair would have been yeehawing with him.
yeah,
To me,
it's,
that was like a split between our countries that people didn't even realize, and me and my mum picked up on that as well. She said he looks dead uncomfortable, completely different to Blair,
well, yeah,
and it's been like that ever since.
because
Mm,
because Brown was only part of Blair's New Labour for
mm,
really for power reasons.
mm.
He wasn't on board ideologically. He didn't want to Americanize the UK in the same way Blair did.
No, and he also didn't want to Europeanize us, which is why he rejected the euro.
Yeah, he's very much.
Mm,
Brown had a lot of faults, and he
mm,
was very much the sort of neolib
mm,
position, but he wasn't. The one thing he didn't do was sell us down the river to the
mm.
Americans or Europe. He
I
did
mean, I
sell
have a
us
soft spot
to
for
Europe,
him, even though I dislike him.
yeah, and
I'd give him a cushion in the helicopter.
there's whereas Cameron was basically just a Tory Blair.
Mm, yeah, but even he was not as cushy with the Americans.
Mm,
I mean, that could have just been because Obama was a Democrat and he's a conservative, so he kind of has to be a little bit more distant. But again, like he, even with, I think, was he around with? Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't around when Trump got elected, was he? He resigned.
no,
But again, we have been pushing away from them. But unfortunately, but the most pro British president Trump was the one we rejected as well, because our establishment hated him and preferred Biden initially until they actually had to they met him and realized this guy is demented.
yeah, he's
Like
demented. He hates British people.
apart from Teddy Roosevelt, who was pretty pro-British, I'd say to some extent, Trump is the only one in my lifetime who has been, and in
Yeah,
recent memory. But that's also because he is literally half British.
yeah, he hated freaking Biden hates British people. Like,
Yeah, yeah, he's a plastic paddy.
yeah, he's one of these. He was one of these people who are saying, "Oh
Mm.
yeah, America was involved in the Good Friday Agreement, and
Yeah,
we'll
tangentially,
ensure the sovereignty of the of Ireland and that sort of stuff." It's like,
which is, by the way, not their job and never has been. It's always been our job, whether the Irish like it or not.
well, yeah, because the Irish don't have a
Mm.
fucking army. They have a self.
Nope.
They have a token self defense force, but it gets no
Mm.
funding.
What, the Garda?
Yeah, no, the Garda of the police force.
Yeah, I know that was the joke.
Yeah, it's a freaking. They have a token defense force, but it's like
Mm.
it's got a few hundred people in it. Like, one of the first when I looked into them, one of the first
Mm.
stories I found was the fact how a they had to cancel a training exercise because they couldn't afford the fuel for their one warship.
Wow.
Yeah,
I reckon there's more Irish citizens in the British Army than there are the Irish Army.
yeah, and ironically, they probably are.
Mm. Because for those who don't know, it's very easy for citizens and subjects of both countries to join each other's armies and vote in each other's countries. Like, you don't actually need citizenship to do that. So you'll find that a lot of Irish people will move over here as if they moved from Scotland to England, join our army, or live here for a while and start voting, and life goes on. And they'd rather live here than there. Although apparently Dublin's an interesting place. It's actually a bit of a tax haven, isn't it? Like Google is headquartered there, and quite a lot of other Silicon Valley giants are for tax
Yeah,
reasons, apparently.
Ireland, unironically, is one of the freest markets in the world right now.
Oh, potato.
And here's the thing: it's one of
Mm,
the Like, and they've actually got a really good
Mm,
system for employment post university because they, for a long time, they had a big problem of university students just leaving the country and never coming back.
mm,
So what they've done to try and keep university students around is that they've connected certain Irish-based businesses directly to university courses, where the
mm,
university course will be created specifically in collaboration with a certain business to make those like fit the university course around the exact skills those businesses need. And so basically, all the students get told that basically, if you pass the course, you go to this business, and chances are you'll get hired because you have all because that business knows this university is going to give them all the skills they need. This university is going to give this university is going to give you all the skills you need for that specific job.
mm.
And so, like, this has led to like Irish universities having this some of the highest employment rates within 6 months of graduation of anywhere in the world.
It's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah,
So,
it's,
like, go on, continue.
it's all because they've just allowed businesses to like tweak the curriculum to include skills that specific business needs in its employees.
Hmm. So, do you think we will see a split eventually between the two countries,
What do you mean?
politically, at the very least, between America and Britain? Will we finally see the special relationship crumble?
I do.
Hmm.
I think it'll come about in the form of either America balkanizing of its
Hmm.
own accord, leading to basically the very concept of America being no longer politically relevant, or just Britain just giving America the middle finger.
I think the latter's more likely. We're seeing far more of the current crop of conservatives, and I'd say even Labour as well, are getting a bit tired of Americans and
Mm.
the special relationship. It's slowly dawning on them that they don't have our special interests at heart, and we don't always have to be there for them. Because I remember reading something up like, why did we not go to Vietnam? Well, the only reason we didn't go was because we didn't have the troops because they were all in not Indochina, Malaysia. We and also Northern Ireland. So we were stretched thin, and Johnson wanted us, Lyndon B. Johnson wanted us to go over there, and I think it was Macmillan. I can't remember who it was in 1964 or five, whoever it was. I'm sure some of the boomers in the chat will correct me, but basically, he said, "I can't, man," and we never joined anyway, which is lucky for us. Well, we sent the Australians in, I guess. Well, yeah, I think it'll be us finally giving them the middle finger. I don't think it'll be America balkanizing because I don't see that happening. I mean, it's kind of constitutionally hard to do so anyway. I mean, isn't secession illegal since the 1860s, 70s?
I think so. Oh, well, it
Yeah,
is, but I don't think that. Don't think that'll matter for much.
yeah, true.
Hold on. What
If
year did you say?
I just think we will be the ones that will end it. I
I
think
mean,
it can only
what years were we in Malaysia?
Malaysia about mid 1960s, wasn't it? It was, or it could have been the Dutch East Indies. I don't know.
It was either depending on what year.
Hmm.
It was either Macmillan from 1960 to 1963,
Hmm.
or it was Douglas Home from 1963 to 1964, or
Hmm.
Harold Wilson from 1964 to hold on, from 1964 to 1970.
I think it was Wilson then, because that's when the Vietnam War was amping up, and we had like 10,000 men in the Far East as well,
Yeah,
and we just couldn't commit.
because Wilson was a prime minister twice. He was prime minister from 1964 to 1970, and then from 1974 to 1976.
Hmm. And also the one who brought us into the EU, wasn't it? Or at least the EEC.
Yeah, he was succeeded the first time by Heath, and then the second time by Callahan.
Hmm. Disastrous. He was our Biden, basically, or
Yeah,
Jimmy Carter. Let's be more realistic.
ironically, he was a Republican when he first became prime minister, but by the end he
Hmm.
had a very positive relationship with Her Majesty.
Really
Yeah,
interesting.
he was still a Labour man by the end,
Hmm.
but he was
Hmm.
like a pro monarchy Labour man by the end. So he was much more in line with the voters than he was the establishment of the Labour Party.
Now that's a very interesting personal story that could make a good video. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Because you're the monarchist and I'm not, so you could maybe make a good video about that. Just the story alone, like how he became, uh, how an ardent Republican became an ardent monarchist. So I think we'll end it there. It's been an hour, and I usually like to keep these streams fairly short. It's been great chatting to you.
Yeah, it's been great chatting to you too. I really enjoyed coming on.
Oh,
Sorry,
let me just get.
I've,
Sorry, go on. I need to get your YouTube channel. I almost forgot. Oops.
yes, it is Paleo Angloism, or if you want to see my second channel, is Pop Culture Angloism.
I will get both of them in the description and in the chat for everyone.
Yeah,
So there's
and
one.
the
I've any new things on the horizon?
well, Pop Culture Angloism will see more videos tomorrow. And in the next week or so, you'll see my first video post rebrand on the channel, which is Paleo Angloism. Sorry, Paleo Libertarianism Explained, which is basically where
What's the other channel again? Pop Angloism, right?
pop culture Angloism.
That's it. Yeah. See, at first I wondered what your PFP was. But it's a ball.
Yeah, same as my first channel, just it's a different ball.
So what's the purple one then?
The purple one is it's the Paleo Libertarian Pillar ball.
Ah, I see. Why is it purple?
Because it's a mixture of paleo conservatism and libertarianism.
Hmm. Shouldn't you have a little bit of a black as well because you're an anarchist as well?
Well, the snake's black.
Oh yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Okay, that works. The snake's black.
Mm.
Pop culture Angloism, right there. It's saved in the description, so if anyone wants to check it out, they now can. I'll also post it in the chat for all of you. There we go. All right. So, any last remarks before we skedaddle skedoodle?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. Go check out the channels and yeah, more content to come. And make sure if you're not subscribed to Mitch, then do so. He's a good lad.
Oh, thank you. And you are a good lad too. Please subscribe to both his channels. I have now subscribed to Pop Culture Angloism, and I will be watching your most recent video, I think, which is the reaction to the Kenobi trailer, right?
No, my latest one is Disney is my chat about Sean Levy being picked as the director for
Oh, right, yeah.
which for the record, I think is a pretty bad decision.
Mm. But that remains to be seen, obviously.
Yeah, of
It
course.
could end up being like the Joker for, adult comedy, for all we know.
To be
But
fair, the first and second movies had different directors, and but
mm,
the screenplay writers have remained consistent across the
mm.
entire series.
Are they still there for the third?
Yeah.
Then it should be all right. So anyway, guys, we're going to end it there. So anyway, it's been your boy, and until next time, we'll see you all later.
Good night.